Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. You guys sent in a ton of really interesting stuff on vitamin A.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of people are curious about this one.
Right. So as always, we're going to break it all down
Distill it down to the essentials.
to those golden nuggets that'll help you understand vitamin A,
What it does for you.
where to get it.
And importantly, why it matters so much for your health.
So before we dive in,
Yeah.
maybe we should just start with like a basic definition.
Right.
What exactly is vitamin A?
Yeah, because it's actually
Yeah.
a little bit tricky right off the bat. It's
Yeah?
not just one thing.
Okay.
So vitamin A actually exists in two main forms.
Okay.
First, you've got preformed vitamin A, which is also known as retinoids.
Okay.
And this type your body can use right away.
Got it.
And it comes from animal sources,
Right.
like liver,
Uh-huh.
fish oils,
Okay.
egg yolks,
Hey.
and dairy products.
Okay, so all the good stuff.
Right, all the animal-derived sources.
Okay.
Then on the other side, we have provitamin A, and this includes the carotenoids.
Carotenoids, okay.
And these are found in plant-based foods.
Okay.
This is where you get those vibrant colors,
Okay.
like carrots,
Uh-huh.
sweet potatoes, spinach, mangoes.
Like that really bright orange.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, the big difference
Yeah.
is that your body needs to convert those provitamin A carotenoids
Okay.
into the usable active form of vitamin A.
Okay, so it's like a two-step process with those.
Right, exactly.
With the plant-based.
So it's important to know the difference
Yeah.
between these two types.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because they're handled differently.
Yeah, so why does that matter?
Well, vitamin A is kind of a big deal.
Okay.
It's involved in so many processes in your body,
Right.
things that we really rely on every single day.
Okay, like what?
Like how well you see,
Oh.
how strong your immune system is,
Okay.
the health of your skin,
Okay.
even things like reproduction
Really?
and the regulation of your genes.
Wow. It's doing a lot.
Yeah, it really is a powerhouse.
Okay, so it's a powerhouse with two identities.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's dig into some of these specific functions.
Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of people, when they think vitamin A, they think vision. You know,
In a
it's
classic one.
carrots helping you see in the dark,
Right.
all of that.
Yes,
So,
let's start there.
yeah, how does vitamin A actually impact vision?
Okay, so first of all, it's essential for your ability to see in low light conditions.
Okay.
You know, when it starts to get dark.
Right.
It's a key part of a protein in your eyes called rhodopsin.
Okay.
Rhodopsin.
Yeah, you could think of it as the light-sensitive pigment in your retina.
Okay.
Basically, when light hits your eye,
Uh-huh.
rhodopsin breaks down and sends a signal to your brain.
Got it.
And that's what allows you to see.
Okay.
But without enough vitamin A, your body can't produce enough rhodopsin.
Ah, okay.
And that can lead to difficulty seeing in dim light, which
Yeah.
we call night blindness.
Night blindness, right?
Exactly.
So that's where that connection comes from. Exactly. That's why carrots got that reputation.
Okay.
But it goes beyond just night vision.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's also crucial for color vision.
Wow.
It's involved in the pigments within your cone cells.
Okay.
Those are the cells in your retina that detect colors.
Okay.
And it's also important for how well you see in bright light.
Okay.
Now, if you have a really severe and prolonged lack of vitamin A,
Uh-huh.
you can develop some serious eye conditions.
Like what?
The most well-known is xerophthalmia.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it starts with really dry eyes,
Okay.
but it can progress to damage of the cornea,
Which is
which is the clear front part of your eye.
Okay.
And if it's not treated,
Yeah.
it can lead to blindness.
Oh, wow. So it's a really serious
That's it.
deficiency.
It can be very serious.
Okay, so we need to be getting enough
Absolutely.
for our eyes.
Yeah.
What about the immune system?
Oh, yeah. Vitamin A is huge for immunity.
Okay, how so?
Well, one of its main jobs is to help maintain your mucosal barriers.
Okay, mucosal barriers.
Yeah, these are the linings of your respiratory tract.
Okay.
Your gut, your eyes.
Right.
They're your first line of defense against pathogens,
Okay.
like bacteria and viruses.
Right, so it's like a shield.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a physical barrier,
Yeah.
keeping those bad guys out.
Okay. But it does more than that, right?
Oh, yeah, it doesn't stop there.
Okay.
It also supports the production and function of your white blood cells.
Right. Our immune cells.
Exactly, the ones that actually fight off infection.
Okay.
Vitamin A helps those cells develop, mature, and function properly.
Wow.
So if you don't have enough vitamin A,
Yeah.
those barriers can weaken,
Okay.
and your immune cells might not be as effective.
And then we get sick.
Exactly, you become more susceptible to infections.
Okay, so it's like a double whammy
It really is.
if you're deficient.
Yeah, it's important to have enough.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's switch gears a little bit
Okay.
and talk about skin.
Sure.
Because I know a lot of people are interested in skin health
Yeah.
and aging and all of that.
Right.
And I know that vitamin A is connected to that somehow.
Yeah, definitely.
But can you explain how?
Absolutely. So vitamin A is pretty important when it comes to your skin.
Okay.
It plays a key role in how your skin cells turn over and repair themselves.
Uh-huh.
And that's why you see retinoids used in so many skincare
Ooh,
products.
okay. Retinoids are.
Retinoids are compounds that are derived from vitamin A,
Got it.
and they can be really effective in treating acne.
Oh.
They help to unclog pores and reduce inflammation.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And they're also used for their anti-aging properties
Okay.
because they can stimulate collagen production.
Right. Which helps with wrinkles.
Exactly. It helps keep your skin firm and elastic.
Yeah.
And they can even help to even out skin tone.
Really?
Yeah, by reducing hyperpigmentation.
Wow. Okay, so that's why they're so popular.
Exactly. They can do a lot for your skin.
Yeah, but it's not just about what we put on our skin, right?
Right. That's just one part of it.
Okay.
Internal levels of vitamin A are also important.
Okay, how so?
Well, they're involved in regulating cell growth and differentiation,
Okay.
which is essential for maintaining healthy tissues and organs,
Right.
including your skin.
So it's working on multiple levels.
Exactly, from the inside out.
Very cool. Okay, well, what about its role in reproduction and development?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
That seems pretty fundamental.
It really is.
Yeah.
So vitamin A is essential for healthy fetal growth during pregnancy.
Okay.
It plays a critical role in the formation of the baby's eyes, heart, lungs,
Mm-hmm.
kidneys, skeletal system.
Wow.
It's really involved in a lot of those early developmental processes.
Yeah.
And it's also important for reproductive health in both men and women,
Okay.
supporting things like sperm production in men
Okay.
and healthy development of the placenta during pregnancy.
Wow, it's involved in all of that.
Yeah, it really is a crucial nutrient.
Okay. But we've also talked about how too much can be a problem.
Right.
Especially during pregnancy.
Exactly. So that's a really important point to remember. While vitamin A is essential,
Yeah.
too much of it can be harmful.
Okay. Particularly the preformed kind.
Right, especially during pregnancy.
Okay.
It's all about balance.
Got it. Okay.
Getting enough, but not too much.
Okay. Well, you also mentioned that vitamin A is involved in gene regulation.
Yes.
And that sounds super complicated.
Yeah, it can be a complex topic.
Yeah.
But the basic idea is that
Yeah.
active forms of vitamin A
Uh-huh.
can actually act like hormones within your cells.
Really?
Yeah, they can bind to specific proteins
Uh-huh.
called receptors inside the cell's nucleus.
Okay.
And this binding can influence which genes are turned on or off.
Wow, so there's like a switch.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And those genes direct the production of different proteins
Uh-huh.
that are vital for the function of your organs.
Like your heart.
Yeah, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys.
Wow. It's doing a lot more than I thought.
Yeah, it's not just a building block.
Right.
It's actively directing things
Okay.
at a very fundamental level.
And then there's the whole antioxidant angle.
Right.
And I think that's mainly with the provitamin A,
Yeah, that's right.
the carotenoids like beta carotene.
Exactly.
So what's going on there?
Well, those provitamin A carotenoids
Mm-hmm.
have significant antioxidant properties.
Okay. And antioxidants.
Antioxidants are compounds that help to neutralize harmful free radicals.
Okay. So free radicals are bad?
Yeah, they can damage your cells
Okay.
and contribute to oxidative stress,
Okay.
which is linked to inflammation
Uh-huh.
and chronic diseases.
So antioxidants are kind of like our protectors.
Exactly. They help to fight off that damage.
Okay.
So when you're consuming plant-based sources of vitamin A,
Yeah.
you're not only getting that precursor to active vitamin A,
Right.
but you're also getting that bonus antioxidant activity.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So it's a 2-for-1.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay. Well, I think we've covered a lot of the basics
Yeah, we've laid a good foundation.
about what vitamin A is and what it does.
Right.
So now let's talk about where we actually get it. From food.
Sounds good.
So the information you sent breaks it down into two main categories,
Huh.
animal-based and plant-based.
Exactly.
So let's start with the animal-based sources.
Okay, so for preformed vitamin A,
Yeah.
the animal sources are where it's at.
Okay.
And liver is really the superstar.
Okay.
It's exceptionally rich in vitamin A.
Wow.
But, as we'll talk about later,
Yeah.
that also means you need to be aware of potential toxicity.
Right. Moderation is key.
Exactly.
With liver.
Yeah. Other good animal sources include
Okay.
fish liver oils,
Okay.
egg yolks,
Okay.
and dairy products that have been fortified with vitamin A.
Okay.
So things like milk and yogurt.
Got it.
Now, on the plant side,
Yeah.
for provitamin A,
Uh-huh.
we're looking at those deeply pigmented orange and yellow veggies
Okay.
like carrots,
Uh-huh.
sweet potatoes,
Yeah.
dark leafy greens like spinach and kale,
Okay.
and even some fruits like mangoes and apricots.
Really? Mangoes and apricots have vitamin A?
Yeah, they're good sources of provitamin A.
Cool. And what about red peppers?
Oh, yeah. Red peppers are actually a surprisingly good source.
Interesting, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're often overlooked.
Okay, well, I also noticed that the information you sent mentioned something called RAE.
Yes.
What is that exactly?
RAE stands for retinol activity equivalence.
Okay.
And it's basically a way to standardize how we measure the amount of usable vitamin A
Oh,
that you're getting from different foods.
so why do we need that?
Because remember, we have those two forms of vitamin A.
Right, preformed and provitamin A.
Exactly. And preformed vitamin A is ready to go.
Uh-huh.
But provitamin A needs to be converted.
Right.
So 1 microgram of beta carotene, for example,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have the same biological activity
Okay.
as 1 microgram of retinol,
Got it.
which is the primary form of preformed vitamin A.
Okay, so RAE helps to account for
Right.
it.
It allows us to compare different sources,
Uh-huh.
whether they're animal or plant-based.
On a level playing field.
Right. It's like having a common currency for vitamin A.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, it makes it much easier to compare apples to oranges.
Or carrots to liver.
Exactly.
Okay, well, speaking of comparing things,
Yeah.
we've talked about how important it is to have enough vitamin A, but we've also touched on the fact that too much can be a problem.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit more about that balance?
Absolutely. So both deficiency and toxicity are concerns when it comes to vitamin A.
Okay.
As we've discussed, a lack of vitamin A can lead to night blindness,
Right.
dry skin,
Okay.
frequent infections,
Uh-huh.
and in severe cases, even blindness or stunted growth.
Wow. So it's not something to mess around with.
No, definitely not.
Okay. But then on the other hand,
Yeah, if you consume too much vitamin A,
yeah,
especially the preformed type,
right?
that can lead to problems as well,
Like what?
where you can experience things like nausea,
Okay.
dizziness, liver damage,
Wow.
and it can increase the risk of birth defects during pregnancy.
Right. That's what we were talking about before.
Exactly. So it's really important to be mindful of your intake
Okay.
and to stay within safe limits.
So what are those safe limits?
Well, the information you provided mentioned an upper limit for adults
Uh-huh.
of 3,000 micrograms RAE per day of preformed vitamin A.
Okay. 3,000 micrograms.
Yeah, that's the upper limit for
Okay.
preformed vitamin A.
Got it.
So it's potent stuff.
Yeah.
You got to respect that limit.
Okay. So how do we make sure we're getting enough,
Yeah,
but not too much?
right.
Yeah.
How do we hit that sweet spot?
Exactly.
Well, first and foremost, I would say prioritize whole food sources
Okay.
whenever possible.
Yeah.
Try to get your vitamin A from food
Right.
rather than relying on supplements,
Okay.
unless a healthcare professional specifically recommends them.
Okay. Good advice.
And when you are consuming plant-based sources
Uh-huh.
of those carotenoids,
Yeah.
pair them with some healthy fats.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
It can really help to boost their absorption.
Okay. What kind of fats?
Things like olive oil, avocado,
Okay.
nuts and seeds.
Got it.
And as we've mentioned, pregnant individuals need to be extra cautious,
Right.
avoiding excessive amounts of preformed vitamin A,
Uh-huh.
like from liver,
Right.
but making sure they're getting enough
Huh.
through a balanced diet
Okay.
or a prenatal vitamin
Okay.
as recommended by their doctor.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's all about being mindful and making informed choices.
Right. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more
Sure.
about the differences between preformed vitamin A
Okay.
and provitamin A.
Yeah.
I think we've covered the basics,
Uh-huh.
but are there any other key distinctions that we should be aware of?
Yeah, definitely. So one important difference
Yeah.
lies in how they're absorbed and handled by the body.
Okay.
So preformed vitamin A,
Uh-huh.
because it's already in its active form,
Right.
is readily absorbed and stored in the liver.
Okay.
And that's actually why there's a greater risk of toxicity
Yeah.
if you consume too much of it.
Because it builds up.
Exactly. Those liver reserves can accumulate over time.
Got it.
Now, provitamin A, carotenoids.
Yeah.
They need to be converted into active vitamin A,
Right.
and this conversion process is regulated.
Okay.
So if your body already has enough active vitamin A,
Uh-huh.
it will typically convert less of the carotenoids.
Okay. That's smart.
Yeah, it's like a built-in safety mechanism.
So it's a little safer in that sense.
Exactly. High intakes of carotenoids from food are generally considered much safer.
Okay.
You might see a temporary yellowing of the skin.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that.
It's called carotenoderma,
Yeah.
but it's harmless.
Okay.
It doesn't lead to the more serious toxic effects that you can get with preformed vitamin A.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, so your body is better at managing the plant-based forms.
Okay. So it's like a natural buffer.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, are there certain situations
Uh-huh.
where one type of vitamin A might be better than the other?
Yeah, definitely. So preformed vitamin A can be particularly important for individuals who have a limited intake of plant-based foods
Okay.
or for those with certain conditions that impair their ability
Yeah.
to absorb or convert carotenoids.
Got it.
Whereas provitamin A,
Yeah.
with its added benefit of antioxidant activity,
Right.
can be a great way for many people,
Uh-huh.
especially vegetarians and vegans,
Right.
to meet their vitamin A needs safely.
Okay. So different strokes for different folks.
Exactly. It depends on your individual needs and circumstances.
Got it. Okay. Well, let's talk about how much of this stuff we actually need because
Okay.
your information gave some specific guidelines.
Yeah, so the recommended dietary allowances,
Okay.
or RDAs for
Mm.
vitamin A,
Yeah.
do vary depending on your age,
Uh-huh.
your sex,
Okay.
and your stage of life.
Like pregnancy.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And these recommendations are expressed in those retinal activity equivalents.
Right. RAEs.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, for example, for adult males,
Uh-huh.
the RDA is around 900 micrograms RAE per day, while for adult females,
Yeah.
it's about 700 micrograms.
Okay. So a little bit less.
A little bit less, yeah.
Okay.
Now, during pregnancy, the need goes up
Makes sense.
to about 770 to 750 micrograms.
Okay.
And it's even higher during breastfeeding.
Right. Because you're producing milk.
Exactly.
Okay.
Around 1,300 micrograms.
Okay. And you mentioned that there are also adequate intake levels
Yeah.
for infants?
Right, that's because there's not enough research
Okay.
to establish firm RDAs for those little ones.
Caught it.
But it's important to make sure they're getting enough,
Yeah, of course.
especially in those early stages of development.
Okay. And then what about those upper limits?
Right. We can't forget about those.
Because we don't want to overdo it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those ULs are crucial for safety.
Oh.
So for adults, the upper limit for preformed vitamin A
Uh-huh.
is 3,000 micrograms RAE per day.
Okay. That's what we talked about before.
Right.
3,000.
Yeah, and these limits are lower for children and adolescents.
Okay.
So it's really important to stay within those recommendations.
Especially with supplements.
Absolutely, especially
Yeah.
if you're taking supplements.
Okay. So we've got a good handle on how much we need.
Yeah.
And how much is too much.
Right.
Now, who might be at risk
Yeah.
of not getting enough vitamin A?
Yeah, that's a really important question.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people just assume that they're getting enough
Right.
of all the nutrients.
Yeah, it's easy to think that.
But that's not always the case.
No, definitely not.
Okay, so who should be paying extra attention?
Well, unfortunately, vitamin A deficiency is still a big problem globally.
Really?
Yeah, and certain groups are more vulnerable.
Okay.
So individuals living in low-income countries
Okay.
where they might not have access to a variety of nutrient-rich foods,
Right.
they're at higher risk.
It's to their diet.
Exactly.
Okay.
Pregnant and breastfeeding women also have increased needs,
Right.
so they need to be careful to get enough.
And young children, too.
Absolutely.
Because they're growing so quickly.
Right. They have higher needs.
Okay.
And then there are individuals with certain medical conditions,
Okay, like what?
like Crohn's disease or cystic fibrosis,
Uh-huh.
which can affect nutrient absorption.
Right.
So they might have trouble getting enough vitamin A.
Okay, what about alcohol?
Yeah, chronic alcohol consumption
Yeah.
can interfere with vitamin A metabolism and storage.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's another risk factor.
It is, yeah.
Okay, and then there's vegetarians and vegans.
Right. So they do consume provitamin A,
Uh-huh.
but they need to be mindful
Okay.
about getting enough of those carotenoid-rich foods.
And pairing them with fats
Exactly.
help with absorption.
Right.
Okay.
And then we have infants who aren't exclusively breastfed
Okay.
or who aren't getting fortified formula.
Mm-hmm.
They can also be at risk.
And older adults, too.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have trouble absorbing nutrients.
That's right.
Okay. And then people with liver disease.
Yeah, because that can affect their vitamin A storage. And then finally, anyone with limited nutritional education
Okay.
or cultural practices that restrict their diet.
Got it. So it's a pretty wide range of factors.
It really is.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that can contribute to deficiency.
Okay. So what can we do about it?
Well, there are a number of interventions
Okay.
that can help to address this issue.
Okay. Like what?
Well, one is targeted supplementation programs,
Okay.
especially for infants and children in developing countries
Right.
where deficiency rates are high.
Okay.
Another is food fortification,
Okay.
so adding vitamin A to staple foods like grains and oils.
Okay.
Dietary education is also really important,
Yeah.
helping people to understand the importance of a balanced diet,
Right.
and then supporting and encouraging breastfeeding,
Uh-huh.
because breast milk is a good source of vitamin A.
Okay. So those are all important steps.
They are, yeah. It's a multifaceted approach.
Right. Okay. Well, let's shift back to the other end of the spectrum
Okay.
and talk about toxicity. We've mentioned it a few times, but can you explain exactly what happens?
Yeah, so vitamin A overdose
Okay.
or hypervitaminosis
Oh, yeah.
happens when you consume more vitamin A
Uh-huh.
than your body can handle.
Okay. And that's mainly the preformed type, right?
Right, especially the preformed type.
Okay.
And it can happen in two ways.
Okay.
Acute toxicity,
Uh-huh.
which can happen from a single very high dose,
Okay.
often from a supplement,
Okay.
or chronic toxicity,
Uh-huh.
which develops gradually
Okay.
from consistently high doses over a long period.
Got it.
Now, the most common sources of overdoses
Yeah.
are high-dose supplements,
Okay.
and as we've mentioned,
Yeah.
excessive consumption of liver.
Right.
Now, the symptoms of acute overdose
Yeah.
can include nausea,
Okay.
vomiting headache, blurred vision.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
Now, it's not pleasant.
Okay.
And chronic overdoses
Uh-huh.
can lead to more serious issues.
Like what?
Like dry and itchy skin,
Okay.
hair loss,
Oh, wow.
bone and joint pain fatigue,
Uh-huh.
and even liver damage.
So it can really do some damage.
It can, yeah.
Okay.
And it's particularly concerning during pregnancy
Right.
because high levels can increase the risk of birth defects.
Okay, so we definitely don't want to overdo it.
No, definitely not.
Okay, well, who's most at risk
Uh-huh.
for toxicity?
So as we've said, pregnant women are a high-risk group
Okay.
because of the potential harm to the fetus.
Right.
Individuals with liver disease are also more susceptible
Okay.
because their liver might not be functioning optimally.
Right.
And then anyone taking vitamin A supplements,
Mm-hmm.
especially without medical advice,
Right.
needs to be extremely careful.
And what about smokers?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
The information you provided mentioned
Uh-huh.
that smokers who take high-dose beta-carotene supplements
Okay.
might have an increased risk of lung cancer.
Really?
Yeah, which is something to be aware of.
Okay, so it's not completely harmless?
No,
No.
not in that case.
Okay, well, what should someone do
Yeah.
if they think they might have taken too much vitamin A?
The first thing is to stop taking any supplements
Okay.
and to limit or eliminate foods that are very high in preformed vitamin A.
Right, like liver.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if you're experiencing any severe symptoms,
Uh-huh.
you need to seek medical attention right away.
Okay.
Don't wait.
Got it. And then what about interactions with
Hang
other
back.
things?
Yeah.
Because I know vitamin A doesn't just exist in a vacuum
Yeah, you're right.
in our bodies.
It can interact with other things.
Okay.
So first, let's talk about medications.
Okay.
So for example, if you're taking retinoid medications,
Uh-huh.
like those prescribed for acne or psoriasis,
Right.
taking vitamin A supplements at the same time
Yeah.
can increase your risk of toxicity.
Okay. So that's something to avoid.
Definitely talk to your doctor.
Yeah.